I was one of the Native American children, adopted at birth and removed from our country's Indian reservation system. I was raised in a small middle-class farming community, but was never told of my true American Indian heritage. It was still taboo back in those early days. The years passed, and in 1987 I lost both parents. While going through their personal belongings, my wife discovered my adoption papers and she began a search. 5 years later, I was reunited with my biological Lakota family living on the Lower Brule Sioux Indian Reservation of South Dakota. I am a son of two mothers and a product of two worlds that had collided. But I have an equal amount of love and pride for both. I'm Paul LaRoche, and the stories you are about to see are an attempt to share this true American story of a hidden heritage.
This week on Hidden Heritage, we're going to travel to Hayward, Wisconsin. This beautiful little northern Wisconsin town is the home of the original Famous Dave's barbecue shack. Most people don't realize that Famous Dave was a member of the Choctaw Chippewa band of Lake Superior Ojibwe. They're located in northern Wisconsin. Dave's list of accomplishments and credentials are so long that I can't begin to scratch the surface here. Join us now, and we meet up with Dave Anderson, who's agreed to meet with us and share his incredible life story.
In the Native American culture, we do have our role models and mentors. But on closer examination, only a few names rise to the top when it comes to the ultra-successful Native American business entrepreneur. Dave Anderson is at the top of that list and is at the top of his career. No overnight success. Dave forged out his dreams through a lifetime of dedication, belief, and persistence. Most of us know him as Famous Dave of Famous Dave's Barbecue Ribs. He was kind enough to share his life story with us. Join us now as we visit with Famous Dave Anderson.
I think the story of Famous Dave's is really a story of the American dream come true. It's a story about the impossible becoming the possible. And when I first started building my first restaurant, people would actually drive by and they would ask me, "Dave, what are you doing?" "I'm building the world's best rib joint," I would tell them. They would laugh and they would say, "In Hayward, Wisconsin? Why, there's only 1,800 people in this town. They're all Swedes and Norwegians, and they don't have a clue about barbecue. You should really go down to Kansas City or Memphis where people really know what barbecue is all about." But I had a dream. Because at the end of that first summer, without any advertising, we were serving 4,000 to 6,000 people a week in a town of only 1,800 people. You know, when I'm walking through my restaurant, I have many people that come up to me and they say, "Dave, it seems like you're so passionate about what you do. Looks like you really love ribs." And I tell them, you know what? There's so many frustrated people in the world today doing something they don't love to do. And I really believe if you're going to be successful in life or your career, you have to love what you're doing. And what I've found out is that when you love what you're doing, you're going to want to give the best that you have to other people. And it's with that passion and enthusiasm that I feel for my barbecue is what people get from me. They feel that passion and they can taste the great love that I have that I put into every rib that I make. I've been through the tough times. I've been so broke. You know, I know what it means to have to pawn everything in the home and even go up to my wife and ask her for the jewelry that she's wearing because I pawned everything else in the home. I've been there, and I know how embarrassing it is to watch the bank come and repo your car and then watch all your neighbors look out their window wondering what's happening, and you know they know what's happening. There's a side of Famous Dave's that a lot of people probably don't know about, but I feel that I've been put on this earth for a higher purpose, and that's to be able to bless into the lives of other people a hope for themselves. And my own hope came when I got sober. And I've been sober 16 years now. And I'm very open about that. These business people would come up to me and they would say, you know, Dave, you don't need to run around the country and tell people all these awful things about yourself. You know, just tell them the good stuff, how you went to Harvard University, even though you don't have an undergraduate degree, but yet you were able to get your master's degree from Harvard University. How you've been bankrupt and you've been so poor that you had to pawn everything in the house, but yet you've been able to help found 3 publicly traded companies on Wall Street and create over 20,000 jobs. What they never hear about is how I've had my own adversities in life. And I really believe that's the story of Dave Anderson, or Famous Daves. Because if I hadn't gotten sober, there would be no Famous Daves today. And today I'm very open about it because I believe that other Native people or anybody listening to this or watching this, that if they could see that if I'm willing to stand up and say that I had to tackle the tough things in my life, that I had to stand up and ask for help, that maybe there's hope for somebody or maybe even themselves. I think because of my success, I get asked to share my story with many colleges, universities, and high schools, community groups, because they want to hear that entrepreneurial story, the American dream come true. And I share my story of Famous Daves, how I started out with nothing, but I had a dream. And I look at them and I say, you know, there was a time in my life when I was the shyest, bashful kid in my class too. In fact, I couldn't lead a group in silent prayer. That's how shy and bashful I was. And today, though, I realized that if I was going to be a success, is that I had to change. And a lot of people, they think that change happens out there. You know, if I had a different job, or if I was born into a different family, or if I had a different boss, or maybe if I was married to somebody different. And they always think that change happens out there. But what I found out the hard way was that the only change that was going to happen in my life was if I took 100% responsibility for what was happening here. And once I was able to change what was in here and how I thought about things, it seemed like the whole world just opened up for me. And one of those changes, though, was I realized that if I was going to be in business, I needed to share with my stakeholders and the bankers or my employees or my customers my hopes and my dreams. And so, being a shy, bashful kid, I had to learn how to speak in public. I needed to be able to sell my story. I needed to get people to believe in what I was doing. And at first, it was really tough for me. And it's almost like I'm sharing with people all of the bad things about my life. And I've even, over the years, have had business associates come up to me and they say, you know, Dave, when you're running around the country, you don't really need to tell people all the bad stuff that has happened in your life. Just tell folks all the good stuff. That's really all they want to hear. But I really believe that the hard times that I've been through, the adversities that I've been through is really the story about Famous Daves. Well, the story is both my parents are Native American. My dad's a Choctaw Indian from Idabel, Oklahoma, and that is about as far south as you can get. And really, that's where the love of Southern food comes from. And then my mom is from the Lakota tribe way up in the north woods of Hayward, Wisconsin. And people will say, well, how did some Southern boy ever get to meet some Southern gal? Well, both of my parents were put in Indian boarding schools by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And a lot of people are shocked by that. And they think that that's the kind of stuff that happened in Abraham Lincoln's day or George Washington's day. But this generation, my parents were taken from their families and stuck in Indian boarding schools. And my dad can remember being whipped and beaten until his skin broke and bled. And he can remember having to eat soap until he could no longer speak his language. And this is a story about Native America that a lot of people are unaware of. And this is really the story of Famous Dave's, because if it wasn't for my parents meeting at an Indian boarding school, I would never be here today. And if it wasn't for my dad being born way down south in the Bible Belt of barbecue, and my mom being up north, there would be no Famous Dave's today. And so today, that's really the story of Famous Dave's. It's an incredible passion for great tasting barbecue that my dad had, that he was willing to take my mom and drive down south every other weekend until she learned how to make great tasting Southern foods. And my dad knew every single barbecue joint along the way. And then even in the city of Chicago, my dad worked with a lot of black construction workers, and at lunch, they would often bring ribs in their lunch bucket. And so my dad, being a barbecue-loving Southern boy, he started to go along with his black coworkers to the west side of Chicago, where they would go to these storefront barbecue joints that were owned by some of their black friends. And I'm telling you what, that is some great tasting barbecue. And I can still remember to this day the first time I ever tasted one of those homemade barbecued ribs. And as soon as I opened up the door, there was just this incredible aroma that would just seem to fill the family home. So I went running into the kitchen. There was my dad on the kitchen table with his lunch bucket and some ribs that were wrapped in newspaper. Now, back then, nobody cared about, lead poisoning or whatever kind of poisoning, because he had ribs that were wrapped up in newspaper, and as he was unfolding these newspapers, he gave me a rib, and I can remember biting into that rib. I can remember how just how juicy it was. It was mouth-watering. It just, the flavor just filled my mouth. It was so intense. And it was right then and there that I knew that I was going to learn how to make ribs that were that tasty. And from that day on, I had been about barbecue. I love barbecue. I could, if you were to cut my arm, barbecue sauce would come rolling out. I mean, that's how passionate I am about great tasting barbecue. And today, I have been in barbecue restaurants all over the country, thousands. I know barbecue from the start to the get-go. I am all about barbecue. There is no question about it. I love barbecue. I eat barbecue. I bathe in barbecue. I mean, if you walked into my kitchen, you wouldn't find anything but barbecue sauces, spices, and seasonings, and cookbooks. I am barbecue. And really, that's what it takes, is an intense passion. A passion for what you love. I love barbecue so much. I have been in every barbecue joint in America, to the little smokehouses in the foothills of the Carolinas, down to the big mesquite pits in Dallas, Texas, to the little black-owned mom-and-pop barbecue storefront barbecue joints found in Chicago or Memphis or Nashville. If it even smelled like barbecue, I was headed there. That's how much I love great tasting barbecue. The story of Famous Dave's, I really believe, is an inspiration, or should be an inspiration, to all Indian people, because the original Famous Dave's is right here on Round Lake, which is just right across the street from the Lakota Reservation. And I know a lot of rural tribes and a lot of Native people, Indian people that are living on these reservations. They often say, well, we don't have any economic opportunities. And I always say, well, if you don't have any economic opportunities, it's because you don't have it up here. All dreams start with being able to have a vision. It starts here. You got to believe in your vision so strongly enough that you manifest that dream into a vision, into a plan, into a business. And Famous Dave's. We got started on the edge of the Lakota Reservation in a town of only 1,800 people, 150 miles away from any major city. But today, Famous Dave's has been able to grow because we had a good product, we had a good service. And today, you can find Famous Dave's all the way from Washington, D.C. to California. I've learned a lot being an entrepreneur, and I think one of the things that I share with other people is what I call my best of the best list. You'll hear a lot of people talking about you got to have dreams and write down your dreams and then turn those dreams into goals, write down your goals. But have you ever heard of anybody talk about having a best of the best list? Well, how this best of the best list got started, when I started Famous Dave's, I was thinking about all of the things that I could do the best at. When I started Famous Dave's, I got to thinking, if I'm going to be successful, how many things can I offer my customers that is really better than everybody else? And from that, I created my best of the best list. Like I knew that I wanted to have the best barbecue sauce in America. I knew that I wanted to have the best ribs in America. I also wanted the best honey buttered cornbread or the best country roasted chicken. But I also knew that I needed to have the best training program, and I needed to hire the best employees. I needed to have the best music, the best decor. Whatever it was, I needed to excel at it. I needed to be the best. I needed to be a professional at my craft. And I think that's really important, to have this mindset that I'm going to excel, that I'm going to be a professional at my craft. And so I grew up never knowing that I could succeed. And it wasn't until I had an opportunity to hear an inspiring speaker named Zig Ziglar, who shared that it didn't matter where you come from, didn't matter what you've been through, that in this great country that we live in, that if you have a dream and if you're willing to work hard, that really anything is possible. You can turn the impossible into the possible. And so it just opened up a whole new world for me. For the first time in my life, I started to realize that, hey, I may be Native American, I may not have had opportunity, but you know what? I can make opportunity. I've had an amazing story with Famous Dave's. I really believe that Famous Dave's is going to be America's official barbecue joint. I really do. I really believe that Famous Dave's one day is going to be America's official barbecue joint. That's my dream. And I'm working hard to make it happen, one plate of great tasting barbecue at a time, one great satisfied customer at a time. And I believe that someday people are going to look back at Famous Dave's and they're going to think about the guy who founded this company, because it's an incredible story. It's the American dream come true. But more than that, I believe that Famous Dave's is going to be America's official barbecue joint. And I've got a strong dream. And that dream's going to happen by serving the world's best barbecue one plate at a time and creating raving loyal fans one person at a time. And I have a dream that is doable, it's possible, and I believe it in my life. Because a lot of people ask me about, when did it click for you that you were going to be an entrepreneur? And it's hard to tell, but as I look back in my life, I often think about the days when I was in high school. And I used to think I was the dumbest kid in class. And I can remember my parents in the evening sitting me down before the family kitchen table and almost demanding me to sit there till I learned something, because they knew I was struggling. And looking back, I knew they were struggling because they wanted me to get good grades, but I would sit there in front of my books and it was like my mind was blank. I would look at my books, I would look at a piece of paper that I was supposed to write something on, a book report, or I would try to answer math problems, and it just didn't click for me. And I would sit in class and I would watch my classmates whenever the teacher would ask a question, and it was like they would raise their hand. It was like they were so quick. And so I didn't think I was smart at all. I thought I was like the dumbest kid in class. And it wasn't until years later that I found out I had attention deficit disorder. And that kind of explained a lot because, back then the teachers used to get mad at me. They said I was always daydreaming. Well, I've learned how to turn my weaknesses into my strengths. And so today I've learned that is called visioning. And then I can also remember they used to get really mad at me because they said I could never stay focused on any one thing. Well, today I've learned how to use that to my advantage because to me that's multitasking. And so, we all have our stories why we can't succeed, but a lot of it is recognizing what you're good at or recognizing what your weaknesses are, and then being able to take your weaknesses and quit using them as an excuse, or sometimes we have a problem, we think that's an excuse. It can never be an excuse. You've got to take your problems or you've got to take your weaknesses and turn them into your opportunities. And that's what I've been able to do. I think my Native heritage has been both a blessing as well as tough times. I grew up in a family that wanted to raise me the right way, but you still feel these tugs of your Native heritage pulling at you. But I also come to an understanding is that being successful in business doesn't go against any of our culture. And I'm often faced with that question when I go and share my story in tribal schools. I'll have some Indian kids come up to me and they'll say, business is not like our culture because being in business is really about greed and it's about getting as much money as you can. But as Native people, we were taught that we should be giving and not to be greedy. And I said, well, then you've got the wrong understanding about business. Because if you understand business, business is really about solving other people's problems. It's giving more than is expected from you. It's creating a delightful experience for other people first. And as an entrepreneur, as a Native American businessman, I want to excel in my craft. I want to be the best that I can be so I can make other people happy. And the more I can excel at being the best rib cook in America, the more I can excel at creating the best tasting ribs, I'm going to make other people happy. And so really what I do is I give of myself all that I can. I give the best that I have to offer, the best ribs, the best opportunity, the best mentorship. And I believe that when you can give your best to other people, that doesn't go against any of our culture. It doesn't go against any of our teachings.
Thank you for joining us this week on Hidden Heritage. We'll be right back with the conclusion of the life story of famous Dave Anderson.
I know a lot of people sometimes say, God, would I love to be in his shoes because it seems like whatever he does works. And they look at the success of famous Dave's, but what they don't see is all the adversities and the challenges, the tough problems that I've had to go through. And I think if they knew how hard I've had to work, 7 days a week, 18-hour days, never taking a vacation for years. I know there was one stretch of time I never took a vacation for like 10 years. I had a dream though, and it was to create the world's best barbecue joint. And I know people sometimes they talk about how tough things are and the adversities of life. Well, that's really where all opportunities come from. Because one of the things I learned is that when you're going up that ladder of success in life, you're not going up that ladder of success because you're working hard or you're working smart. You're going up that ladder of success in life because you have been willing to step up and shoulder your share of the problems. And that's what we need more of today, is not people running around and pointing fingers and saying, well, they're to blame, or if they would have done things differently. What we need today are people who are solution conscious, not problem conscious, because problems are really everybody's opportunity. And so many people, they're saying, well, I've never had an opportunity. Well, the good Lord is looking down and he's saying, what? He said, if you want blessings and abundance and you want opportunity, you've got it. Just look around you. All of these challenges, these tough problems, these adversities, these are your opportunities. And so I'll tell these young people, I say, I was the shyest, bashful kid in my class. And they look at me and I say, but My story is all about it doesn't matter where you are right now or your circumstances. Because what I've learned is that in this great country that we live in, is if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to stay true to your dream and never ever give up on that dream, that amazing things can happen. You can turn the impossible into the possible. And that's the story about Famous Dave's. Because if somebody would ever look back and see where I started out from, my mom's Indian fry bread booth, and then take a look at where we are today, Famous Dave's with restaurants that stretch from Washington, D.C. all the way to California, they would be amazed. I think when you look back and you look at the story of Famous Dave Anderson, the guy, you're going to see somebody who started out with nothing but a dream and a willingness to work hard. But when you look at my legacy, I'm believing that you're going to see more than just a great barbecue joint or some great tasting ribs. You're going to see a man who really cared, who was really passionate about living and passionate about giving opportunity and hope to other people. And I don't believe that there's a higher honor than when my time has come and gone, that people will say, there went a God-fearing husband to his wife. There went a God-fearing father to his children. And there went a God-fearing leader in his community. And I believe that's the story of Famous Dave's.
Thank you for joining us today on Hidden Heritage. I'm your host, Paul LaRoche, reminding you that if you enjoyed the podcast, share us with your friends and help us spread the word. Till next time, from all of us in Brule, thank you.